Unexpectedly arriving in the world of Ultraman, but receiving the system to cultivate monsters. Isn't it just a monster? What to raise is not raising it. I am a professional captain. Yin Yang Master. Commander. Shepherd, and so on. As long as you give me time, I will be able to push the Pingguang Kingdom dungeon later. Whether you're Carmela or Trega, in my eyes, there's only a mission monster. The story starts from the day when Bai Lan rode on the Bemontestan to Mars and beat up a 30-million-year-old senior. Chapter 1. Raising Monsters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bugu bugu, it's already so late. In a handmade shop, a young man sitting behind the cash register puts down his comic book and looks at the cuckoo clock on the wall. He walked out of the cashier, pulled down the rolling shutter door of the store, closed it, and then went to the warehouse inside the store. Opening a plain wooden door and walking inside, there is an exceptionally large hall with a European-style decoration that may not be luxurious, but appears simple and atmospheric. After entering, a black figure suddenly flashed and pounced. The young man was suddenly stumbled by the collision and turned around in silence, saying, "Didn't I tell you not to make such a sudden attack?" Gio, the object of preaching is not humans, but a black monster that looks like a bird. It's the big monster of the universe, Bemontestan. Seeing Bemontestan bowing his head as if he knew he was wrong, the young man waved his hand and said, "All right, go ahead." The young man's name is Bai Lan. A year ago, he was just an ordinary worker, but he inexplicably came to this monster-infested world of Ultraman. Originally, according to his imagination, as a wanderer, one could no longer become a giant of light or a system, and then go straight to the pinnacle of life through unparalleled killing. As a result, the system does have it, but it raises monsters. At that time, everyone was confused. Monster. Aren't those all props for pushing the plot? Although I quite like monsters, when I really go to the world of Ultraman, it is obvious that standing on the side of light is more secure. After Bemontestan happily flew into a door on the second floor, he lay down in a chair in the hall and stared blankly at the chandelier above. Bemontestan's strength can now be unleashed for free movement, so this training should be around. His system, full name is Monster Breeding System, just like the name, specializes in raising monsters. I remember when I first came here, I had to find a way to complete tasks while also having to find a job to support myself when I couldn't speak the language. It's like what happened yesterday. At that time, the meager salary earned was really calculated with the fingertips. Monster Guide. With a call, the virtual screen unfolded in front of him, displaying the information of Bemontestan's guidebook. The big monster of the universe. Berenstein stage. Adulthood power. Planet medium level potential. Planetary systems low order. I barely reached the level of freedom to move around, hoping to win in the graduation exam. After waving and closing the guidebook, Bai Lan got up from her chair and walked to the bedroom on the third floor. The decoration in the bedroom is very simple, with a desk, a bed, a wardrobe, and a storage rack. For Bai Lan, flashy decorations have no value. Whether it was the day when a manta had to be broken in half and shared with monsters, or now when he has no worries about food and drink, he doesn't like those beautiful decorations. Glancing over the things placed on the shelf, Bai Lan felt a little curious whether the few free-range graduates had gone any further now. The entire shelf actually only holds two things, one red and one blue, 2 stones. However, the value of these two things is definitely worth placing separately. The strength of monsters is currently divided into 3 levels. Planets, planetary systems, and stellar systems. Furthermore, he cannot reach it now because that level is no longer something that can be explained in just a few words. Although planets are the lowest level, it does not mean that all monsters can reach planet level. Monsters that cannot even reach the star rating are directly referred to as ordinary creatures by the system. If you don't quite understand, then tigers, elephants, birds, fish, cats, insects, including humans, are all summarized within the hierarchical range of ordinary organisms. That is to say, those monsters, in the system's judgment, are just ordinary larger animals. Alas, the starting point of Bemontestan is relatively high, and its potential is also good. It should be possible to pass. Speaking of which, should the plot also begin? By the way, the world where Bai Lan is currently located is the world of Trega. To be honest, when he first learned about it, he was still interested in the power of Dark Trega, but over time, he gradually lost that idea. Monsters are actually quite good. Although some people have a rather irritable personality, they are actually very pure, such as that silly corn cob. Bai Lan propped up her chin with one hand and looked at the starry sky outside the window, murmuring, that corn cob should not have died yet, right? Although it's just some miscellaneous fish, it's not easy to have a larger quantity. Find some time to come back and take a look. Taking back her thoughts, Bai Lan took a shower in the bathroom and went to bed. In a certain asteroid belt of the universe, a stone statue accidentally collided with a floating piece of gravel, and a crack appeared on the head of the statue. A faint purple light shot out from the crack, and then the crack quickly spreading to the entire statue. Silently, the stone statue suddenly exploded, and a dark giant with a body composed of gold and silver appeared. After a moment, a large amount of debris flew out of this meteorite belt, and soon a silver figure flew out of it. Detected Carmela awakening, the plot begins, and the mission generates ancient monster, sealed super ancient dark giant, and resurrected super ancient light giant. Task. Ancient monsters completion condition. Kill the super ancient dark monster Galba reward. Galba egg task. Sealed ultra ancient dark giant completion condition. Help Carmela defeat Trega back into the human form reward. 1 random monster egg task. Revival of the super ancient giant of light completion condition. Help Trega defeat Carmela reward. 1 random light attribute monster card. As soon as Bai Lan woke up from her sleep in the morning, she received a task from the system. It's rare to see 3 tasks appear at once. In the past, tasks were all single, and he only encountered 2 at the same time. Although there are many tasks this time, the maximum number that can be completed is only 2. It doesn't matter if you kill Galba, the latter 2 tasks will inevitably offend one. Because the completion condition is to help defeat, if you defeat alone, it will definitely not be considered as completing the task, nor will you receive any rewards. He had tried the bug in the card task before, but the result was that the task failed. The system didn't give him a chance to get stuck with a bug, and he disappeared without completing the task. Bai Lan scratched her messy hair and said with a distressed expression, "To complete the mission, we still need to go to Mars. This distance is not short." He got out of bed, put on his slippers, and walked out into the hall shouting, "Bemontestan. Are you there? Gio." In the hall, Bemontestan, who was holding a silver white metal ball, heard a shout and quickly hid it behind the sofa, responding to the call upstairs. Unfortunately, Bai Lan had already noticed its hiding behavior and noticed a small silver white curved object exposed from behind the sofa. She couldn't help but support her forehead and said, "Did you go grab a natural gas cylinder again? This Bemontestan is good at everything, but it's too lazy. Instead of searching for food in the universe, it prefers to take ready-made food directly." By the way, Bai Lan can understand the language of all monsters, which is an additional passive ability. Berenstein quickly shook his head and denied, "Gio. Gio. When denying, gently kick the exposed natural gas cylinder back with your legs and hide it. I saw it all. Is hiding useful? When you take me to Mars later, I'll go wash up and have breakfast first." Bai Lan sighed helplessly, saying that her teaching is not a problem. Why is she crooked? After the owner left, Berenstein picked up the natural gas tank again and happily opened a hole on the surface of the tank with his abdominal mouth to enjoy his breakfast. As soon as Chapter 2 arrives, I see Chang Wei hitting Laifu. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. After wiping off the water on her face with a towel, Bai Lan looked at herself in the mirror, with a head of black refreshing hair, black pupils, and a slightly emaciated face. Although she couldn't be called a handsome guy, her appearance was also quite good. However, in this world view of dying at any moment, strength is much more important than appearance. Which task is good to choose? It doesn't really matter which side you help, the key is the difference in rewards. During breakfast, after careful consideration, Bai Lan finally decided to go to the scene to see the situation before making a decision. He personally leans more towards monster eggs and may be able to hatch powerful monsters. Even if the monster card is obtained, I cannot use it now. After washing the dishes and putting them in the cabinet, Bai Lan called out to the already full Bemontestan. This guy has already eliminated all the evidence and made it clear that he intends to deny it without evidence. Alright, let's go. Arriving at the entrance of room 101 on the first floor, Bai Lan gently opened the door and saw that it was not a room inside. Behind the door, there is a silent starry sky, with countless twinkling stars, embellishing this darkness. Every door here, except for his bedroom, connects to a space somewhere. But the connected space is not static. It may be a planet full of monsters behind the door, a vibrant primitive planet, or even the Kingdom of Light. Bemontestan first entered the entrance and floated inside the cosmic hole. His body, which was originally less than 2 meters long, quickly transformed into several tens of meters. After it stopped growing, Bai Lan jumped over directly and landed on the back of Bemontestan. The destination this time is Mars. Drive Berenstein. What? Receiving the confusion it conveyed, Bai Lan silently patted her head, indicating the precise direction. Cosmic monsters do have a unique sense of direction in the universe, but if we talk to them about the names of planets, we really don't know. After determining the direction, Berenstein immediately set off and quickly increased the speed to the extreme. Trega. Bang. A giant of light, with a height of 50 or 60 meters and a body composed of 4 colors. Gold, silver, red, and blue, was knocked out, while the attacker was a dark giant with a similar appearance. The dark giant Carmela, awakened from the 30-million-year seal, is filled with anger and drives the ancient dark monster Gulba to attack the Mars research base. As a result, what she saw was Trega, who had turned into a stone statue. Just as she was about to destroy this giant stone statue, a human suddenly turned into light and fused with the statue, reviving it. So, a revenge war spanning 30 million years began. However, it is obvious that Trega is not a match for Carmela. After all, one is due to weakened strength, and the other is that there is still a gap in strength between the two sides from scratch. Besides, there's a monster on Carmela's side to help. How can we lose 2-1? Not to mention too, just Gulba is already suppressing Trega, and the situation is quite bad now. Ong. Break. Break. Break quickly. Trega, who was beaten down on the ground, heard a sharp cry and some panicked shout, and then the monster that was stepping on him was knocked out by a burning object. Bang! 2 heavy objects fell to the ground, making a dull collision sound. Carmela was also stunned and didn't come to her senses for a moment. It wasn't until the monster that crashed into Gulba stood up unsteadily that it realized. Is it a cosmic monster? Gulba, get rid of it. It was just a wild monster, and Carmela didn't pay much attention, so he let Gulba deal with it. In this way, she happened to personally torture Trega and vent her accumulated anger for 30 million years. On. And Bemontestan, who woke up from the dizziness of the impact, tilted his head and let out a puzzled cry, but soon seemed to realize something and looked around in panic. Roar! Gulba roared fiercely towards it, but at this moment, Berenstein had no mood to pay attention to it. Seeing this, he directly gave it a big mouth in the face. The powerful General Galba fell to the ground with a fan and didn't get up for a while. Benyeo. Suddenly, a voice rang out, and Bemontestan, who was originally frantically searching, immediately locked his gaze on a cliff. Bai Lan was covered in dust and had a nuclear goodness smile on his face. It's great to see that you're so energetic. When you go back, you can train in melee with Silver Dragon for 3 hours. Gah. Suddenly, Bemontestan seemed to have been struck by lightning and turned grey and white on the spot. Fight with Silver Dragon. 3 hours. Okay, monsters that will die. Ow. At this moment, Galba's call caught its attention, causing Berenstein to instantly break free from petrification and fly over in anger. It's all you blocking the way. What's wrong with such a big place? Unfortunately, it's stuck on the landing route. So Galba, who was still full of mist, became the object of Bemontestan's anger. In terms of strength, it seems that there is not much difference between the two, but as a cosmic monster, Berenstein has a stronger foundation. Combined with flexible maneuverability and aerial combat capabilities, the Galba was almost powerless to resist. Moreover, it would be furious and fight fiercely, with its sturdy body almost ignoring the opponent's attack. As for long-range attacks, remember one thing. Don't use ballistic energy to attack Bemontestan. Otherwise, your energy is its energy. On the other side, Carmela, who was fighting against Trega, saw Galba being beaten up and angrily cursed trash, but she couldn't make room on her own side. In addition, the human standing on the cliff also caught her attention. Human, are you manipulating this monster? Upon hearing the sound ringing in her mind, Bai Lan didn't panic at all. She patted her dusty clothes and calmly replied with her mind, yes, so Ms. Carmela, do you have any further questions? If there is no doubt, then we will beat you up next. You want to die? As one of the once powerful dark giants, suddenly like ants, humans say they want to beat themselves, which can be imagined how angry Carmela is. Especially when the other party obstructs their own revenge, it can be said that it adds fuel to the fire. Hey, Bai Lan didn't feel any nervous when she saw the other person being provoked. Instead, she gave a strange smile and said, sure enough, these guys have very strong self-esteem, but anger can lead to losing the right judgment. Pop pop. As Bai Lan gently clapped her hands, a rainbow with reversed colors appeared eerily, and the space under the rainbow fluctuated like waves. A huge silver figure walked out of it, scratching its chin with its claws in confusion. Hilbegong. Cut her off. Although he hadn't figured out what was going on yet, upon hearing that he could fight, Hilbegong immediately excitedly stepped forward with his legs down and his hair down to charge. And Carmela is not the target either. She would be stunned and be hit in place, dodge to the side and kick over, causing Hilbegong to stumble and almost fall to the ground. It looks a bit awkward, but in reality, this kick did not cause any harm. After standing firm, Hilbegong continued to charge forward. Anyway, its skin was rotten and its flesh was thick, so this painless attack was completely useless. Standing on the cliff, Bai Lan embraced her chest with both hands and quietly observed the battles on both sides. For him, it is important to know the strengths and weaknesses of monsters. At present, there are a total of 3 monsters being cultivated. Apart from Bemontestan and Hilbegong, there is also one monster, which is also the strongest and is about to enter the graduation exam. Its strength is planetary advanced. Of course, that monster is not the Red King nicknamed Corn Stick. Red King has already passed the last graduation exam. Chapter 3. Beating a 30-million-year-old senior. You are listening at novelfull.audio. During the battle between Carmela and Hilbegong, Trega, who had been brutally beaten on the ground, also recovered and slowly got up from the ground. He just found that the blue energy indicator light on his chest had turned into a flashing red. What's going on? Zhenjiang Jinwu, who transformed for the first time, did not know what the flashing indicator light on his chest represented, but he understood that he must quickly defeat the female giant and monster. The other two monsters that suddenly appeared were either enemies or friends, but obviously they were both commanded by the person standing on the cliff. Ha! After rearranging his position, Trega rushed towards Carmela, and he still understood the principle of capturing the king first. Seeing the scene where Silver Dragon was suppressed by Carmela due to lack of agility and speed, Bai Lan furrowed her brows and immediately issued a new instruction. Hilbagong. Tai Chi, due to not being able to hit the enemy, Hilbagong Dun, who was so angry that he jumped his feet, extended his two paws and performed the starting posture of Tai Chi. It no longer initiates attacks actively, but passively defends, using defense as its offensive. To be honest, Hilbagong's Tai Chi is quite awkward and unfamiliar because it is not suitable for use, but this is the only way Bai Lan can think of to make up for its shortcomings. The combat style of monsters is too direct and rigid, so those with hands have to practice martial arts with them. How much they can learn depends on their talent, and practice makes perfect. A silly monster with muscles growing into its brain can't afford to be injured. Upon seeing this, Carmela swept her leg in place and kicked Trega in the face as she rushed towards her. Bang! Visually, as Trega spun 2.5 circles in the air and landed heavily, Bai Lan took out a scoring card with a red cross drawn from her space waste bag. The difficulty coefficient is 3 stars, the landing posture is sporadic, out. Out. After scoring, Bai Lan stuffed the scoring card back into the space pocket and looked at Hilbagong again. She found that although using Tai Chi to defend made up for some disadvantages, the difference in agility, speed, and intelligence still put her at a disadvantage. Although with the defensive power of the Silver Dragon, it only hurts a bit at most. I was originally planning to hone the Silver Dragon, but it remained the same as before. The defensive battle continued, which stimulated its aggression and turned it into an active attack. Ah, I still have to go on my own. Bai Lan walked to the edge of the cliff and took out a strange thing from her waist bag. Hilbagong. Fusion. Fighting equipment activated. Hilbagong. Fusion. This is a reward given by a previous mission, a special version of the fighting device that allows users to integrate with monsters and have comprehensive control. The original fighting device, on the other hand, is exclusively owned by the Lobronx, who possess the genetic factor of the Lobronx, and is their tool for manipulating monsters. But the original fighting device had a limit on the number of monsters to control and did not have the ability to integrate with monsters. Bai Lan does not have the genetic factor of LeBron and does not need to use a fighting device to manipulate monsters, so his original function is useless to him. Shining from the fighting instrument, Bai Lan was enveloped and flew towards Hilbagong. When the two merged, Bai Lan felt as if she had become a Hilbagong, full of inexhaustible power. During the first few fusions, he was indeed quite addicted to this incredibly powerful feeling. However, in my heart, I know that this is just a sudden increase in strength, and I haven't adapted to it. If you haven't adapted, come a few more times and you'll have adapted. However, he doesn't usually like to blend in with Hilbagong because this guy has frog vision. Simply put, it means that only moving objects can be seen, while other stationary objects are almost imperceptible. To put it metaphorically, it's like a person with a myopia of 600 degrees who looks at the scenery 50 meters away, all blurry and unable to distinguish what is in the distance. So far, there is no way to solve its vision problem. Fortunately, this flaw is not easily discovered. After all, during battles, there will definitely be movement, and it is impossible to stand still as a target. The enemy still tests their luck to discover this weakness. Another point is that he did not replace Hilbagong, but rather a brief fusion of consciousness between the two sides to control the body. Therefore, during the fusion period, his consciousness will be influenced by the other party, especially in the initial few fusions. After the dissolution of the fusion, Bai Lan felt like she had become a bald guy once, and everyone wanted to get into a fight. My nickname is Master Ma. Please teach me. As she was shouting, Bai Lan had already controlled Hilbagong to rush forward, lifting her paw in one go. Young people, who will tell you about martial arts. Carmela had noticed that the monster was moving slowly and immediately retreated to avoid it. Hey, but Hilbegong used his claws to shoot down the air and spin around, his thick tail flying up in the air and hitting Carmela's side waist. With tremendous force, Carmela was suddenly pulled out and fell heavily to the ground, rolling a few laps before quickly getting up. Faced with this sudden change, Carmela, who was at a loss, also cursed inwardly. Previously, Hilbegong would not have used this kind of variation move. Claw strike is claw strike, tail flick is tail flick, and the attack method is very rigid. Dear Ms. Carmela, how many points do you think the tail flick just now could score? The perfect score is 10 because the conversation is based on thoughts, it can be heard very clearly. This made Carmela furious and she swung a light whip with her right hand. But it seemed as if Hilbegong had anticipated it earlier. With his left paw open, he grabbed the whip of light and then exerted force to pull it. Buddha's palm. Carmela, who was pulled over, suddenly didn't react. It wasn't until her paw was only a few meters away from her face that she finally realized she needed to dodge. Pop. But time was obviously not enough to dodge. With tremendous power, her claws shook her head and her whole body flew out, flying far away. Hilbegong clenched his fists with both paws and made a pumping posture. Oh yes. But speaking of which, should I call it the Tathagata's divine claw? In fact, Bai Lan thinks that Carmela's strength is definitely more than that. It's just that this guy has just recovered from the seal and probably suffered a bone fracture in terms of strength. So you have to seize the opportunity and beat the other person up. Carmela stood up unsteadily, obviously feeling uncomfortable from the attack just now. Just as she stood firm, a few glowing bullets flew towards her chest, causing her to stumble. Ong! Bemontestan screamed and collided directly, knocking down Carmela and stomping on her feet. Bang, bang, bang. Hilbegong took a few big strides in succession and jumped up suddenly. Mount Tytops. Berenstein. Seeing the guy pressing down from the air with a force of 1,000 pounds, Benyeo jumped away without saying a word. With its defensive strength, it dared not take this move forcefully, and Carmela had not yet had time to dodge. Boom! Feeling the vibration of the ground, as well as the legs that were raised and falling, Trega couldn't help but take a deep breath of air and touch his chest. If it falls on oneself this time, at least a few ribs will be broken, right? Too fierce. Ah. A massive dark energy erupted from Carmela and forcefully pushed the suppressed Hilbegong away. After breaking free from oppression, she struggled to get up, covered her chest and retreated, staring intently at Hilbegong. Human. I remember you. Okay, my home is located at XX Street, XX Town, Neon XX City. Remember to come and do business. Ms. Carmela. Seeing Carmela fly away, Hilbegong waved his right paw and bid farewell, while also reporting his own address. Carmela. Are you mentally ill? Can you tell me your address? Afraid I won't be able to find it. Watching Carmela disappear into the universe, Hilbegong turned his gaze to Trega, and Bemontestan also looked over. The quiet scene made Trega feel that the atmosphere was a bit off, and under the gaze of the two monsters, the pressure suddenly increased. They don't beat themselves up in groups, do they? However, at this moment, the energy indicator light on his chest was already flashing rapidly, and a sense of weakness surged up. Trega involuntarily knelt down on one knee, slowly fading away. Save some effort now. Since everyone has arrived, Bai Lan certainly intends to beat up everyone present. Galba has already been beaten to the streets by Bemontestan, and Carmela has also been severely injured and flown away. Don't be fooled by the other person's appearance when they leave, in fact, they are just trying to hold on, and he is still very clear about this. I originally wanted to give Trega a few more big fights, but this guy had insufficient energy and was forced to leave, feeling a bit disadvantaged. Subsequently, Bai Lan also separated from Hilbegong and landed on the cliff. TSK. When merging, I always feel like my brain is going to shrink back, although I know it's influenced by Hilbegong's consciousness, but there's nothing I can do about it. Ah! The victorious Hilbegong roared excitedly, raising his claws and making a flying gesture, preparing to leave like Carmela. Then he realized that he had not moved at all, and once again, he scratched his chin with his paws in confusion, wondering why he didn't fly. Seeing its silly appearance, Berenstein couldn't help but let out a "ong" cry to mock the other person. This guy's intelligence was as good as ever. Sure enough, there are long muscles in even the head, right? And Bai Lan didn't have time to manage them either, he was busy checking his task rewards. Chapter 4. Hey! Brother! Come on! You are listening at novelfull.audio. Monsters have a variety of attributes, many of which are not physical attributes, but rather the attributes of using moves. For example, the volcanic monster bird Barton inhabits hot areas like volcanic craters and has the ability to spew fire. Although it also has the attribute of fire, it is not afraid of water. Various attributes exist in monsters, but some are unique, mostly boss-level monsters. And there is one attribute that is extremely rare among monsters, although it cannot be considered unique. Every monster with this attribute is not weak, and that is the light attribute. For example, the Root Destruction Angel Zog, the Light Monster Pritzmo, and the Phantom Eugene are all related to the light attribute to some extent. In the world of Ultraman, although the power of light and darkness is not used to distinguish between justice and evil on the surface, throughout history. Basically, evil beings use dark power, and not evil beings. None of them use dark power, and the power of light is also very strong. So, Bai Lan also pondered a question: is it power that defines good and evil? Or is power defined by good and evil? Then I realized that this problem was none of my own business, so I was too lazy to think about it. The reward for the task has been distributed. He reached into his pocket and took out a monster card. Magajeton, the demon beast of light, is a powerful guy, but I don't have a ring that can materialize it. Is it useful for fur? Looking at the image on the monster card, Bai Lan helplessly roast. Moreover, there are not many monsters with light attributes, most of which are at the boss level. Unfortunately, they only hit the average Magajeton. Sure enough, the more you want to draw, the more you refuse to give anything. Alas, forget it. As an itchy mouse, it's a common practice to have a little dear man visit you from time to time, and even up activities can't save you. I'm used to it. But if you hit the light demon Pritzmo, then you'll just take off in place. The premise is that one can concretize the cards themselves. The fighting device does not have the ability to materialize monster cards, so currently this card is equivalent to a collectible. Ong ong. Benyeo flew in the air and made a high cry, sounding very proud. The silver dragon on the ground roared in response and jumped up in an attempt to catch the Benyeo, but it couldn't reach it at all. Alright, go back first. Bai Lan reopened the entrance to the Rainbow Magic Realm and asked Hilbegong to go back, then glanced at Benyeo who was still shouting and dying. Did it forget to practice with Silver Dragon later? No, no, no. Looking at it from a different perspective, this is stimulating the fighting spirit of the Silver Dragon, so there will be no water released during the practice. Hey! It's very reasonable to think so, it's really exhausting. How about extending the time for the practice session as well? Double it, we can't waste all this effort. Benyeo, I'm going home. I'll have to practice again later, so I can't waste time. The originally cheerful cries came to an abrupt end, and Bemontestan almost fell from the air. Wanduzi. Forget about this matter. What should I do? On the way back, it deliberately slowed down and pondered ways to avoid practicing. Bai Lan also noticed that the speed had slowed down, but she didn't care when she got home and started practicing. Silver Dragon was waiting in the demon realm, rubbing his hands and waiting. It was the last one to break the shell, but its strength skyrocketed, almost suppressing Bemonten as a senior. In addition to its innate talent, there is also its single-minded thinking and strong fighting spirit. The feeding methods for each monster are different, and the step-by-step teaching is extremely inefficient for Silver Dragon. Therefore, Bai Lan decided to change to a more suitable method for it. Isn't it aggressive? So hone it in battle. If you like fighting, go fight every 3 days or 2. If you can't find your opponent, let your other 2 monsters serve as companions for training. The monster has strong resilience, and with Bai Lan's ability as the Fountain of Life, it can quickly grow back even with broken arms and legs. So, speaking of it as a duel, its level has already approached the level of fighting for almost some time. As a cosmic monster that only wants to slacken off by slacking off, Beimyeo doesn't like to practice against each other. However, it wants to not improve its strength, eat from the owner, drink from the owner, and just keep going. But as long as you practice against each other, your strength will improve in the end when you recover. This is also impossible. In the past, the planetary hierarchy only honed the body, and after directly entering the planetary system, energy purification began. Only a strong enough body can accommodate more and purer energy. This is a common way for most monsters to become stronger, but Ultraman is not like this because they belong to semi-energetic creatures and have extremely high compatibility with light energy. Even if the light energy that exceeds the upper limit is gathered in a short period of time, there will be no problem, and this is truly a case of using it without any side effects. When Bai Lan obtained this information, she couldn't help but transform into lemon essence. I usually practice martial arts with monsters 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, and engage in battles. On Sundays, I learn knowledge and tactics from morning to night. That's called diligence, just to make these little ones stronger and avoid being beaten up when they go out. Good guy. Those who have used up all their resources are openly hanging up. If it weren't for the lack of a place to appeal, he would just be a whistleblower. Okay. Everyone is on the same starting line. Originally, they were competing based on their strength, but as a result, you all took out your fighter jets and took off directly, with the tail flame spraying on your opponent's face. If he gets the demon god, Yi Fu, light demon, and dark demon, he will definitely go and fight for some face for the monster. And no matter how long Bemontestan procrastinates, he will eventually return home. As soon as it got home, it lay on the ground pretending to be dead, trying to escape the practice. Bai Lan lowered her head and looked down for a long time. Seeing that it had not yet stood up, she bent down and grabbed her tail, walking directly towards a door. Ong! At this moment, even if he wanted to pretend to be dead, he couldn't continue. Bemontestan wanted to fix his body with 2 hook-like claws, but he couldn't do it at all. In the end, he was dragged into the door connecting to the rainbow mirror. Hilbegong. 3 hours. Hilbegong, who was doing nothing to practice tail flicking, immediately jumped up and rubbed his paws before running over. Hilbegong. Hey! Brother! Come on! Berenstein! Don't come over. Bai Lan put down a specially enlarged timed alarm clock, left the rainbow mirror, and closed the door to isolate the excited and panicked roars coming from inside. Another beautiful day. It's time to go see the monster eggs. Since it is raising monsters, there are naturally incubators for incubating monster eggs, and depending on the habitat of the monsters, there are also various different environments in the incubators. There are lava areas, water areas, desert areas, forest areas, thunderstorm areas, dark areas, universe areas, etc., to ensure that after hatching, monsters will not have problems due to habitat reasons. After all, newborn monsters are relatively fragile, and of course not all. Some may have already left their infancy in eggs or eggs. After entering the incubator, there is a white room with only one elevator inside. Bai Lan enters the elevator and presses the button in the forest area. Monster eggs without special incubation environment requirements will be placed in the forest area because it is the area with the strongest vitality. Ding! The elevator door opened, and after Bai Lan walked out, she saw the white eggs lying on a clearing covered in fallen leaves in the forest. Chapter 5. The Troubler has arrived. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Galba, once that guy passes the graduation competition, you can hatch it. As if hearing what he said, a glimmer of light flashed inside the egg, and then it dimmed again. Bai Lan's principle for cultivating monsters is only 3, because beyond 3 monsters, he doesn't have the energy to teach. So it's only after one of the 3 monsters graduates that the next monster hatches. Fortunately, the probability of monster eggs appearing as prizes is not high, and there are not many missions before the plot begins. Otherwise, the hatching of Galba eggs may have to be delayed. In fact, delaying incubation is not without its benefits. The vitality of this forest area is slowly being infused into the egg, helping it grow. When it reaches its limit, it will break through the shell and emerge, allowing talented individuals to reach their maximum qualifications. To put it bluntly, it means being able to hatch strong babies. Pop pop pop. Stay well, incubating here is a good thing. In fact, without his permission, even if it reaches the limit, it cannot hatch. After leaving the incubator, Bai Lan went to the store and opened the door to do business. Recently, the strongest monster has gone to Monster Planet for training, and the remaining Bemontestan and Hilbegong are also practicing. He can also relax for a while. In fact, he could have obtained money in a simpler way. Robbery is an illegal activity that Bai Lan is not interested in. At most, she would go to an unmanned planet to get some gold and then hoard it in the warehouse. As for Baineo's attempt to grab a natural gas tank, it was initially disciplined for doing so and then, under instructions, went to compensate with gold. Later on, it seemed that this method was very good, so I occasionally went to grab cans, then threw away the gold and ran away. In fact, it does not understand prices, so the gold left behind is actually worth more than natural gas cylinders. The law can no longer restrain Bai Lan now. What truly constrains him is his humanity and morality over the past 20 years. If we abandon these 2 things, what is the difference between them and beasts? Dingling just as they were sweeping the floor, the doorbell rang and 2 teenagers, aged 15 or 16, walked into the store. They walked up to the display cabinet and looked at the almost proportionally scaled monster figurines placed on it, their eyes shining brightly. One of the teenagers, wearing glasses and a watermelon head, stared at a figurine in the display cabinet that was twice as big as other figurines and exclaimed, "I really think Saurus is the coolest after seeing it a few times. It's clear that Rugset is even cooler. You're just like an octopus, and the price is so expensive." Another companion retorted, although he was short, his voice was not low. "If you 2 want it, it's best to buy it early because if it's sold, I'm not sure when I'll make it again." I don't know what happened, but Bai Lan stood behind the 2 with a broom. These 2 teenagers are also old acquaintances and come to see each other every few days. However, because the prices of the figurines are not cheap, their monthly allowance is not enough. Even though Bai Lan gave them a 20% discount, they still can't afford it temporarily. Wow! Store manager. Don't come out suddenly. The 2 teenagers were shocked and nearly ran into the display cabinet. The glasses teenager rose in silence. Every time they come out quietly, it's like a ghost. Is the ghost as handsome as me? Bai Lan couldn't help but joke and continued sweeping the floor, saying, "You 2 don't invite girls out to play on Saturdays and come to my store to see things done. Being single is not unreasonable." "Shit. It seems like you're not single, the store manager you're talking about." "What? It's nothing. Goodbye, store manager." The 2 teenagers hurriedly ran out of the store door, but a few seconds later, the glasses boy poked his head out of the door and came in. "Store manager. I can save enough money next week. Saurus, please help me keep it. Also, that silver ball is really too expensive. It's not good. Looking. After he finished speaking, he left and Bai Lan looked at the silver ball placed in position C in the middle of the store with a mixture of tears and laughter. The introduction board of the silver ball is also marked with the name Magic Heavenly God. Mortius. This monster, which can be considered a bug-level monster, is actually said to be unattractive, although it is indeed like this, but it doesn't need any pretty appearance, because the meaning it represents is mechanical surrendering. Mechanical surrendering is a commonly used theatrical arrangement technique in ancient Greece. When the plot of a drama becomes intricate and inexplicable, there will be inexplicable and powerful deities to continue the plot, because these deities on stage usually use mechanical devices to ascend to the stage, so they are called mechanical deities. Simply put, if the plot is stuck and cannot be continued, let the gods solve the problem and let the plot continue. Since it is a deity, it naturally possesses unimaginable power. After cleaning, Bai Lan sat behind the cash register, watching TV dramas on the computer, holding a can of soda in her hand. A rare rest, he must make up for all the missed dramas. It was not until the sun had set halfway that Bai Lan closed the shop door and went to have dinner. He doesn't really like cooking because it's too troublesome and he has to tidy up after finishing, which is also very troublesome. In a tavern on the street, Bai Lan, as usual, ordered some food and drinks, a bowl of rice, and a drink. He is probably the only one who came to the tavern to order some rice. But the boss here is also used to it and quickly brought it up. What the guests want is their business, they only focus on doing business. As the sky darkened, the wine room also became lively. Bai Lan just sat alone in a corner, leisurely eating while scrolling through her phone. Due to the workplace culture here, not only are people coming to the tavern, but Bai Lan appears very special. It's really boring, just talk nonsense. The sound of chatting from around came into Bai Lan's ears, making him feel speechless. So he quickened his pace of eating and quickly finished his meal. As soon as he walked out of the store, he froze and looked at the seductive woman wearing a black outfit a few meters away. The dark energy emanating from her was as prominent as a street lamp at night. Carmela. Even if you haven't seen the other person's human body, this dark energy already indicates their identity. You're just a weak human without a monster, said Carmela with a smile on her face, making her look even more gorgeous. She held the whip-shaped light in her right hand. She actually came a long time ago, just kept observing in secret. Seeing the other person going out alone without those two monsters, she couldn't help but jump out and block the door. I didn't expect you to recover so quickly. Bai Lan looked at the other person with a hint of surprise in her eyes. How can it get better so quickly after being hit by Hilbegong's Mount Tai overrides the top? How about Pete? Even if a monster gets caught without self-healing, it will probably take several days of cultivation. Upon hearing his words, Carmela's anger surged and she swung her whip of light. Go to hell. Pop. As a result, she believed that humans were weak without relying on monsters, but calmly grabbed the light whip with her left hand. There's something I need to clarify. I'm a human, but not a weak human. Who else says I'm not carrying a monster? Chapter 6. You are actually a paranoid patient. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Lan grabbed the hand of the light whip and pulled hard, causing Carmela to stumble forward involuntarily. Why is your strength so strong? Feeling the power emanating from the whip of light, Carmela exclaimed in disbelief. In a human state, her strength may indeed weaken significantly, but it is not comparable to that of humans. The other party can actually forcefully pull themselves. It can be imagined that their strength is definitely greater than their own. Losing power to a human is simply a shame for Carmela. No. I was just careless. Just a human. After she stood firm, she began to tug in frustration and began to find excuses for herself in her heart. I am one of the 4 dark giants of ancient times, How could I possibly be inferior to humans? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. At this moment, Carmela seemed to sense something behind her and was about to turn around to look, when her whole body suddenly became numb and her eyes turned black. Puff. Bai Lan let go and the light whip gradually dissipated. How could it be possible not to bring the monster when going out? After all, under this worldview, perhaps after a meal, a monster would emerge from the ground and elevate itself to the sky. In the air behind Carmela, the current flickered, appearing to have a semi-transparent outline, but disappeared in the blink of an eye. This is the third monster that is about to take the graduation exam, the transparent monster and the inner dragon Ga. Due to its invisibility ability, it is most suitable as a bodyguard when going out. Bai Lan did not approach rashly, but cautiously took out her phone and threw it directly. Dong! The phone hit the other person's head, then bounced back and fell to the ground, but Carmela still didn't react. It seems like I'm really dizzy. Alright, I was just planning to talk about the human body of Trega, Bai Lan said as she walked over. Just 2 meters away, she suddenly jumped back and put on a defensive posture. Seeing that there was still no movement, he finally felt relieved. The self-talk just now was just to test the hatred of Carmela towards Trega. If she were awake, she would definitely react. Why is he so cautious? After suffering a loss once, it's difficult to be cautious. After all, one can gain wisdom by taking a fall. Blow the dust off the phone on the ground and casually put it back into your pocket. In the strange gaze of passers-by, he lifted Carmela on his shoulder and said to the people around him with embarrassment, "I'm sorry, this is my friend." There was a little conflict. Then, disregarding the strange gazes of those people, he quickly fled. Because it seems that someone has called the police, it will be troublesome when the police arrive. After waking up from her coma, Carmela found herself confined to a chair surrounded by medical equipment and a couplet hanging on a pure white wall. The upper couplet reads, "Thunderbolt King is alive," the lower couplet reads, "Ensure that electricity is used to cure illness," and horizontally criticizes, "You have a problem." Where is this? She vaguely remembered feeling completely numb before falling into a coma, and then losing consciousness. Just as he was puzzled, a man wearing a white coat and a mask walked in, holding a notebook in his hand. "Who are you? Let go of me. Damn human. Believe it or not, I'll kill you." When she saw someone coming, Carmela was furious and dared to restrain herself. What a great courage. Bai Lan did not respond, but started writing in her notebook, speaking indifferently, "Patient 9527, how are you feeling now? Do you remember who you are? If you don't let go of me again, I'll kill you." Carmela glared fiercely at the human in front of her. If it weren't for realizing she couldn't transform, she would have slapped the other person to death now. "Your illness has worsened again, it seems that you need to take strong medicine." Bai Lan ignored her gaze and pulled the control lever next to the chair, causing the pointer to jump into the middle area. Ah, ah, ah. The next second, Carmela trembled violently throughout her body and let out a trembling scream in her mouth. About 10 seconds later, she stopped screaming and gasped fiercely, tilting her head and continuing to stare at the humans in front of her. She stuttered, "Inside the people who should be washed, inside. 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 Definitely. Ah." Meanwhile, a murderous aura emanated from her. The patient shows no signs of improvement, continue with electrotherapy. Ah 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 ah. After about a while, the electrotherapy stopped and Bai Lan asked again, "Do you remember who you are?" "What? What? You." Ah 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 ah. This time, the control stick was pushed to a high intensity, and Carmela's body shook even more violently, even her screams becoming intermittent. After repeating 5 or 6 times, her face was already covered in tears, her body shook uncontrollably, panting fiercely, and her eyes became confused. Do you remember who you are? The same question, but this time Carmela didn't speak harshly, but instead blurted out her name. Kaka. Air. Mirola. Kakar Mirola. It seems that your consciousness is still unclear. It's necessary to arrange more electrotherapy sessions, Bai Lan said as she started writing in her notebook. However, if you look at it from his perspective, you will find that this is not writing at all, but drawing. It's Ka. Ermi. Pull. Upon hearing that she would come again, Carmela instinctively resisted in her eyes and quickly straightened her tongue, saying it again. What exactly is going on with this human being? What the hell is this place again? No, this is not your name. Your name is Xiaomei, and you live in Ward 233 of Qingshan Mental Hospital with severe delusions. Subsequently, Bai Lan formulaically explained what delusions are. This set of explanations has left Carmela completely bewildered. Am I a mental patient? Is the dark giant my fantasy? What ancient civilization, Trega, is all fantasy? No. This is impossible. I am Carmela. I am the leader of the dark giant. She tried to mobilize the dark power within her body, but it was like sinking into the sea with no response at all. At this moment, Carmela finally panicked. Chapter 7 Carmela. I believe in science. Stay away from superstition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. For 3 whole days, Carmela went from initial denial and resistance to silent acceptance and acceptance, feeling like she was dreaming. The course of treatment these days has been very effective, 9527th. So let's start today's daily investigation. Please sit on the electric therapy chair, and I will start asking questions next. Carmela walked over silently and took the initiative to sit on the electric therapy chair, but her hands and feet were immediately locked. Bai Lan began to ask seriously, what is your name? Xiaomei. How old are you this year? 23 years old. What profession is it? A idol trainee with a duration of 2.5 years, skilled in singing and dancing rap. What do you plan to do after discharge? Contribute to a beautiful and peaceful society and strive to become an idol. What are our correct social values? Freedom, democracy, prosperity, struggle, justice, harmony. Carmela fluently stated her 24-word core values, although she didn't quite understand them yet. Dr. Yang was right. There are no dark giants, monsters, or ancient civilizations in this world that I have imagined. After the daily QA, Bai Lan closed her notebook and expressed satisfaction in her tone. Your condition has recovered very well. It won't be long before you are discharged. So today. Dr. Yang, I feel like I still need electrotherapy, otherwise there will always be a voice in my heart telling me that all fantasies are true. What? Bai Lan looked at her strangely and noticed the anticipation in Carmela's eyes, leaving her speechless. Good guy. You're addicted to electricity, right? However, he can meet this requirement, as this guy has an extraordinary physique. Pushing the joystick to the weak position, he sat next to Carmela, watching her body tremble. The expression on her face under the mask was very strange. Feeling the tingling sensation brought by the electric current passing through her body, Carmela couldn't help but moan, her head went blank, and those strange sounds disappeared. A little bigger. Bai Lan. I have never heard of such a request in my life. So he changed the current intensity to the middle range. No. Not enough. I'll go. Not enough. Try high gear. That's enough this time. Carmela trembled violently throughout her body, but the screams she let out in her mouth didn't seem painful. Instead, there was a feeling of joy. Isn't this guy awakening any strange attributes? However, this idea was just a thought. In fact, Bai Lan felt that the other party's body had developed resistance to electric shock. This is not easy to handle, it should almost be over. Of course, killing is impossible, and one still has to rely on the opponent to complete tasks. Feeling almost done, he turned off the shock and untied the restraint on the chair. Your recovery is even better than expected, you can be discharged tomorrow. He cannot guarantee what will happen if he continues playing, so let's end it early. His goal is to fail. I was originally trying to make Carmela feel scared of myself, but Ta Miao became addicted to electricity. This is completely contrary to the purpose. Will it be possible to be discharged tomorrow? Upon hearing these words, Carmela's consciousness, which was originally somewhat confused, became much clearer. That is to say, can't I be treated with electrotherapy anymore? Is today the last time? Glancing at Bai Lan, who was writing something in her notebook, Carmela quietly reached out to the control lever. Ah 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 ah. The sudden scream almost scared Bai Lan into throwing out her notebook. When he saw Carmela holding the joystick with one hand and indicating it was in the high position, he was completely bewildered. It seemed like it wasn't enough, so she grabbed the lever and pulled it again, instantly increasing the intensity of the current. Ya ah 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 ah. Not only did the screams become louder this time, but they also started rolling their eyes. Lying down. You're crazy. Bai Lan quickly reached out to take her hand off the control stick, but as soon as she touched it, her whole body began to tremble violently and fell to the ground. Conducting after a while, he finally got up from the ground and glanced at the indicator of the current intensity, his eyes suddenly turned black. Black ? Face intensity. You are really brave. At this point, Carmela no longer screamed, rolled her eyes, and her body twitched from time to time, clearly unconscious. Bai Lan quickly turned off the electric shock and examined her. She found that her vital signs were stable, but she simply fainted. Placing it on the bed in the next room, Bai Lan remained silent for a long time before speaking. 6. Among all the people I have seen, you are the second bravest, and no one dares to say you are the first. It's not just 6, it's just crazy. High-end rear super strong. The black man's ? Face has 4 intensities, which he added just in case. After all, the other party is a dark giant, and their physique cannot be judged by ordinary people. However, now Carmela can't hear him speak. At this moment, Bai Lan had already begun to suspect that her current wave of treatment would not really turn the other person into deep well ice, right? Cough cough. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I am a professional, shouldn't it be? Taking a deep glance at the guy on the bed, Bai Lan turned around and left, returning to her bedroom. Suddenly, she remembered something and opened the door again. It's better to unplug the plug, so that guy won't self-medicate. In fact, that electric therapy massage chair is a reward for a certain task. Although it may cause electric shock pain, it is indeed used for treatment, and the electric shock intensity can be adjusted freely. So he and Carmela were electrocuted without getting hurt, but apart from that, there was no other change. Usually, he would also lower the current intensity himself to perform electric massage. The feeling of crispy and numb, which rushed straight from the coccyx to the heavenly spirit, was really refreshing. But if the current intensity is high, it's not comfortable at all. On the day Carmela came to find her, her injury had not actually recovered, but after being electrocuted on the electric therapy chair, she actually helped her heal. It's decided. Let this guy go out tomorrow. Let go. Hurry up and let go of me. No. Even if you say anything, I won't leave. I need electrotherapy. My illness is not cured yet. I am the dark giant. I want to rule the earth. In the treatment room, Bai Lan grabbed Carmela's black silk legs and tugged hard, while the latter stubbornly resisted by gripping the armrest of the electric therapy chair. You're really the dark giant, Carmela. Hurry up and seek the eternal core. Then you'll defeat the sand sculpture in Trega. Eternal fart. You're just trying to trick me out. Believe in science. Stay away from superstition. Bai Lan's forehead is bulging with veins, superstitious about you, a hammer. I really lifted a stone and hit my own foot now. Look at the door yourself. That's the monster. So you're really a dark giant. Carmela looked at the door and found Bemontestan standing there watching the play with a natural gas cylinder in his arms. A clear expression flashed in his eyes, saying, "Indeed, my illness hasn't healed yet. I'm hallucinations. Let me treat it now." Bemontestan silently held a natural gas tank while watching the play. Right. You're right, I'm just hallucinating, right? Bai Lan said, convex. Chapter 8. Bai Lan. My cat runs all night carrying home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the end, Bai Lan was still unable to throw the other person out. Although she was electrocuted by Carmela, she regained her strength due to her injury. As a result, he was no longer a match, and this guy was just clinging on and not leaving. I originally intended to trap people, but after the trap was completed, I was also dragged down. What kind of thing is this called? Bai Lan, who has always disliked using vulgar language, couldn't help but burst into it. It has been 5 or 6 days, but she still hasn't been kicked out. Besides, he probably understands what's going on. The 3 days of electrotherapy combined with deception resulted in a new personality for Carmela, which was much more difficult to deceive than the original personality because he personally created it. And you have such thick skin. Last night, he couldn't help but retort, I'm not your dad. Is it suitable for you to live here? As a result, the new personality opened his mouth and said, Dad, directly silencing him. Do you want a face? How did you shout out that 30-million-year-old guy? Oh, by the way, this guy is not the original personality of Carmela. Faced with such a shameless guy who doesn't want to bring in oil and salt, he is also at a loss. The key is that the original personality doesn't know if they intentionally watched the play, but they never came out and let the new personality make a fuss. In fact, it's not impossible to forcefully throw this guy out, but as the saying goes, the monk can run away but not the temple. I've been here for a long time and don't really want to move my butt. TSK, move it. Opening a store in a different place would be better than this guy staying at home and not even completing tasks. He doesn't like killing creatures, and killing them will also reduce the refresh rate of missions, resulting in a completely chaotic plot. Simply put, it's because Carmela's death is harmful and not beneficial, so we cannot let her die. Finally, Bai Lan made up her mind that as a homestay creature, she really didn't like to leave the place where she used to stay. But the problem with not completing the task was obviously even greater, so that night he warmly invited Carmela to dinner. The latter looked at him with a skeptical gaze for a long time, and then waited for Bai Lan to pick up all the dishes and eat them while eating before moving his chopsticks with suspicion. She wasn't used to chopsticks as a tableware, but she learned it in a few days. When she focused all her attention on the food, the smile on Bai Lan's face intensified. You just need to pay attention to whether there are any issues with the food. Carmela just realized something was wrong and her body was numb and uncontrollable. Electric shock. I have been electrified every day these days, and I have already remembered this feeling. She was so passive in guarding against food that she forgot that the other party also had a monster that could discharge electricity. Play tricks with me. You're still a little too young. Bai Lan happily picked her up and placed her in the alley behind the store, then turned around and went back. Did you not leave yourself far away, but just leave it in the alley? This abnormal behavior made Carmela's newcomer feel very uneasy and tried to control his body to move. In fact, Bai Lan also knows that with the opponent's current recovery strength, they can probably resume their actions in a few minutes. But these few minutes are enough. Bai Lan, who had been prepared for a long time, came out again in less than 2 minutes, carrying a model of a house over a meter high on her shoulder. The green mountains remain unchanged, and the green water flows forever. Goodbye to you. After saying goodbye with a proud smile on his face, he ran away carrying the house in front of Carmela. Not only did I run away, monk. I can still run to the temple. 4 or 5 minutes later, Carmela regained her mobility and quickly caught up, but there were no figures left. She stood under a street lamp, her face mostly shrouded in shadows, but her mouth was talking incessantly. It's like talking to oneself, and it's like two people talking. In fact, the new personality already knows that she is a dark giant, but she strongly opposes the original personality, and Carmela also strongly opposes her new personality. Just seeing Bai Lan feeling exhausted, she felt very satisfied and let the new personality handle things for now. Useless guy. How could anyone be ambushed like this? It seems like you haven't been attacked before, but thanks to being attacked, I appeared. I was seriously injured at that time. Carmela, who was being scolded, was furious. She didn't expect the other party to have an invisible discharge monster. What about 30 million years ago? Was he also seriously injured? As a new personality that originally belonged to the same entity, there are also memories of the past, and the past is immediately brought out. Humph. Carmela really couldn't find a reason to refute this matter and forcefully pushed out the new personality. If you can't say it, you can be tough. Do you talk about martial arts? New personality was also angry, and he quickly blurted out what he had learned from Bai Lan recently. If it weren't for being weaker as a new personality, how could she let her original personality squeeze her out? Carmela raised her head gloomily and looked at the starry sky. I must let Trega pay the price for betrayal. And the white haze. Don't forget to grab the electric therapy chair. It's so noisy. Thinking of the electric shock from the therapy chair, Carmela felt a numbing sensation in her body and growled angrily. In ancient times, there was a big brother on the leaderboard who ran away overnight carrying a train, but now there is me, Bai Lan, who runs away at home overnight. It's really wonderful. I don't like moving to a different place, but Bai Lan was prepared to buy a shop on a street with average traffic. If one day she had to run away, she might be able to use it. The price of that kind of golden commercial street is too expensive, and it doesn't matter if you can't buy it. And he does business by making some food and pocket money, it doesn't matter how much he earns or how little he earns. Anyway, his family only eats on their own. Monsters do not eat human food, and the energy provided by that thing is not enough for them to spread their teeth. The natural gas tank in Berenstein's hand is proportionally reduced, not really that small. If he were to earn enough money to feed the monsters, even under the 007 working system, he wouldn't be able to make it, okay. That house model can be integrated into any building, so Bai Lan is not worried about moving. The store still has the same decorations, but it has been relocated. Of course, Carmela couldn't find him, after all, she didn't have a locator installed on her body. If the other party wants to play a game of kidnapping civilians and threatening themselves, there will naturally be officials to handle it. Delicious. I'm really in a good mood, even eating feels more delicious than usual. Bai Lan ate a sumptuous dinner slowly, and that guy has been bothering me lately, even my appetite is not good. Speaking of which, I seem to have a natural talent for becoming a doctor. Normally, people can be treated as truly insane. If they are truly insane, wouldn't it be possible to cure them with poison? By the way, you've been a big help this time. Here's something good for you. Bai Lan didn't forget Nilonga's assist, so she took out a metal-like stone from her waist bag and threw it to the side. A monster suddenly appeared, bit the stone directly, swallowed it, and then began to flash with lightning all over its body. Nilonga let out a loud cry and went out with a crackling electric current. It was very safe at home and didn't need its protection. Chapter 9, Why don't you just name yourself? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The fact proves that Bai Lan's decision is right. The day after driving Carmela out, the task came. I should have thrown that guy out a long time ago, if it weren't for the difficulty of being a newcomer. At the end, Bai Lan muttered twice but didn't continue. Carmela is actually easy to deal with, the new character she created is the trouble. It's okay not to talk about martial arts, she has thick skin and can compete with him. Putting aside these annoying matters for the time being, he focused his attention on the newly refreshed task. Task. Competition for strength completion condition. Let a monster under cultivation defeat the dark giant Dogong reward. Mechanical glasses task. Vampire monsters from the universe completion condition. Defeat the vampire monster. Carmela reward. Zajera seed, why don't you just name yourself? After reading the task, Bai Lan couldn't help but roll her eyes. The task didn't mention Hilbegong at all, but it pointed to Hilbegong everywhere, especially the reward, which probably could solve her vision problem. Among the three-headed monsters, only Hilbegong has the strongest body. Who won't take on this task? Berenstein is more suitable for dealing with enemies who are good at using energy to attack. Although his body is also strong, he probably doesn't look good enough against Dagon. He was also one of the 4 dark giants from the beginning, and he is still in full form. Nilonga is not suitable for dealing with opponents with high attack and defense. Although its electric shock is good, it leans more towards control. Its physical defense is not even as good as Benyeo, and its invisibility is commendable. A control-type assassin monster, going to fight high-attack tanks, isn't this looking for a hammer? Just can it pass through? In terms of strength, it is Bai Lan's headache. Currently, Hilbegong is only a mid-level planet strength. Although his body is naturally strong, he really lacks confidence when facing Dogong. After thinking for a moment, Bai Lan opened her waist bag and groped inside for a long time, taking out a diamond-shaped crystal with black mist surging inside. The dark thunderstorm energy inside the crystal can temporarily put monsters into a frenzy state, enhancing their strength significantly. This thing is a reward for his early task, but it has never been used. Because the frenzy state of consciousness can be chaotic, if not necessary, I don't want to use it, so I threw it in the corner of the space waste bag. Maybe this will come in handy. After the plot started, the difficulty of the task significantly increased. He placed the crystal in an easily located position inside his waste bag, and then looked at the second task. The Sigila seed in the reward column made Bai Lan's mouth twitch. What do I need this reward for? Destroy humanity. That's not right, it seems that Zajera pollen is not only effective for humans, is it? And besides being extremely addictive, this thing does not cause any harm to the human body. Moreover, the essence extracted from Zajera can prevent biological cells from aging, just like the legendary elixir. If the effect of this thing is spread out, it may make people crazy. Bai Lan is very clear about Zajera's interests. If used well, it is a treasure, but if not used well, it is a great weapon. Not old medicine, it's a treasure that drives people crazy, but Bai Lan is not very interested. He is not sure if taking it will result in the same situation as inhaling pollen, and if he becomes addicted, it will be troublesome. Regarding his own willpower, Bai Lan expressed a lack of confidence and did not feel that he could resist it. Think of it as a potted plant. I don't care about essence liquid. I am young and in my prime, I want to live forever with a yarn. There is a very simple method in modern times to obtain information about monsters. Bai Lan opened the webpage and began to check the news broadcast. When it came to intelligence, those journalists with noses even sharper than dogs could always get second-hand information. As for first-hand intelligence, it must be in the hands of the Earth Peace Alliance TPU, which is the world organization where the elite victory team is located. So, if you want to know if the monster has appeared, just go online and watch the news. Regardless of which column's reporter, they all risked their lives to snatch second-hand intelligence on site. After all, first come, first served, the audience base is so large. If you slow down others, the audience will go to watch other channels. It seems like it hasn't appeared yet. After browsing the internet, I found no news about the dark giants and monsters, which means they haven't appeared yet. If it appears, it will definitely appear. The tasks have been sent out, but it is estimated that we will have to wait for a while. Bai Lan is not in a hurry either. With only the current Trega, there is no time to kill the monster. She arrived in minutes aboard the Bemontestan. Moreover, after the appearance of the monster, the first choice to deploy is the elite victory team. It is only when the fighter jet is knocked down that the protagonist's turn comes on stage. So he leisurely ate snacks and watched the drama, waiting for 2 targets to appear. While he was waiting, 2 dark giants had already converged in another dark space. Carmela, long time no see. Dogon looked at his companion in front of him, with a hint of joy in his rich tone. After a gap of 30 million years, it must be a joyful thing for our companions to meet again. Just because he's quite happy, Carmela may not be sure. First, the revenge was unsuccessful and he was severely injured by being beaten. Then, he went to seek revenge again, but was unsuccessful. He was ambushed and electrocuted, tied to a chair and electrocuted for 3 days. Thinking of those days, she instinctively trembled. It was like an indelible black history. Dogon felt strange in his heart. Is it very cold here? Why are you still trembling? Dogon. Trega has also revived. We must kill this traitor this time. Feeling the anger in Carmela's words, Dogon nodded solemnly. Yes, the traitor must pay the price. And that damn human Bai Lan. We can't let it go either. I want to keep him electrified for 10 consecutive days. Yes. Take that human beings. Dogon, who was just about to agree, was stunned. What kind of human? When did Carmela care about those weak creatures in humans? Moreover, from this tone of voice, it seems that he is even more angry than when he mentioned Trega just now. What did this human do? Chapter 10. The First War on Earth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dogon is a straightforward person, and without much thought, he asked who Bai Lan was, which is worth paying attention to. As a result, Carmela shifted the topic. Can she say anything shameful about it? Definitely not. As the leader of the Dark Giant, he was unexpectedly attacked by someone and crazily electrocuted while tied to a chair. Most importantly, the raider is still a weak human in their eyes. It's simply a great shame. Fortunately, Dogon didn't have that much thought. He just thought that since Carmela was going to deal with humans, he would go and destroy it later. After all, in their eyes, killing is as plain as eating and drinking water. Why hasn't Hitram arrived yet? Maybe it's to replenish energy. After being sealed for so long, the energy consumption is also quite high. This explanation is also reasonable for Carmela. After all, when she first broke the seal, she didn't have much energy left. When Dogon saw Carmela fall silent, he turned the topic back to the right track and said, do we need to continue searching for the eternal core? I don't know if Yolian has any descendants. There will definitely be, and as for the eternal core, it will eventually be mine. For the eternal core, Carmela is determined to win, which is an important step for her to conquer the world. Now wait for Hitram to arrive, and also help me keep an eye on this human. He seems to know about the eternal core. Maybe it's a pity for the descendants. The information about Bai Lan was transmitted to Dogon, who nodded. It turned out that this was the case. No wonder he was following this human. If there were any descendants of Yolian, it would make sense. I understand, I'll investigate. As a straightforward person, Dogon didn't say anything and immediately left this dark space to search for his target. That's a monster. On this day, coastal fishermen, as usual, prepared to go out to sea to catch fish. Before the ship could set sail, I saw a monster appearing in the sea. It was so scared that it kept crawling around. As it fled, I took out my phone and called the police. "Hey! I have a monster here." "Monster?" The police officer on the other end of the phone sounded puzzled, but still reminded, "You called TPU when the monster appeared. Why are you calling us? They are good at catching people, are you still planning to let them catch monsters? Then hurry up and fight." The fisherman, who had already been frightened and panicked, quickly shouted. The monster was about to land, and he also accelerated his escape. "Officer." Upon hearing the other party's panic, the police officer ignored everything else and simply inquired about the situation before hanging up and dialing TPU to report the situation. Upon learning of the appearance of a monster, TPU immediately took action. If the monster were to enter the town, the losses would be huge. At the same time, the reporter rushed to the coastal area like a shark smelling blood, and began reporting on the situation, afraid of slowing down their peers. Bai Lan, who was watching a drama in the store, picked up her phone and refreshed the webpage. Suddenly, she sat up straight and looked at the latest news with serious eyes. Finally, the monster's words warmed up Hilbegong. There haven't been any monsters coming out recently, but Hilbegong has been suffocated and he's not really satisfied with practicing. Bai Lan opened the drawer and took out a mask to put on her face. Her yellow circular face, with a pair of crooked eyes and a crescent-like linear mouth, formed a hilarious face pack that was popular in her past life. However, those who see this comical face will only have one feeling. This person is so cheap. You really owe me a beating. To conceal identity, this is a routine operation. This mask not only covers the face, but also blocks scanning of instruments and the like. The rewards for the task are strange, and Bai Lan has also become accustomed to it. If everyone could get the monster eggs, the family would already be unable to cook. After preparation, he called Berenstein over and immediately set off for the coast. TPU also quickly received reports of another monster appearing and felt a headache. Two monsters suddenly appear. Or different locations. The latter end still appears in the city, in order of priority, it must be dealt with first in the city. But then I heard that this monster flew towards the location where another monster appeared. This is both good news and bad news. The good news is, there's no need to worry about monsters wreaking havoc in the city. If two monsters gather together, they can also concentrate their forces. The bad news is that two monsters gather together, and if they don't fight, they will have to deal with both at the same time and cannot be defeated individually. Because there is a big difference between dealing with one head and dealing with two heads. When they received the information about the appearance of the second monster, they were already on the battleship against the monster. The Nasties. And were about to reach their destination. But obviously, the speed of Bemontestan was faster than that of the Nasties, although it was a late departure, it almost arrived at its destination at the same time. That is to say, in the atmosphere, if in the universe, the flight speed of Bemonten can reach the speed of light. After arriving at the destination, Bemontestan adjusted his posture and landed smoothly. Last time the landing failed, it was a terrible sin. I dare not act recklessly this time. It seems that the strength is not strong. Bai Lan stood on the head of Bemontestan, holding a pointed corner with one hand and observing the vampire monster Carmela. The other person has a somewhat dinosaur-like appearance, but is upright. Carmela, who was searching for prey, also noticed Bemontestan and immediately targeted it. As a monster that feeds on biological blood, its temperament is naturally quite fierce. The prey will not obediently let it suck blood, so Carmela's strength is not weak, already in the middle level of the planet, and she is not hesitant to face a similar level of strength like Bemontestan's. Monsters don't talk about etiquette, they only compete for strength, and when it comes to fighting, they basically never give up. And I don't know what to hide, just open up the momentum, and the weaker ones are probably scared away. Bemontestan looked at the monster in front of him with a sympathetic expression. Even though you are fierce now, you won't be able to run away later. Bai Lan glanced at the warships hovering in the sky and thought for a moment, let them go for now. If she dared to attack her side, let Bemontestan knock them down. Pop pop. As he clapped his hands, a rainbow suddenly appeared, and beneath the rainbow appeared a lush forest scenery, along with a monster covered in silver. Pingguang had already been waiting, and at this moment, the entrance to the demon realm opened. Excitedly, he immediately walked out and headed straight towards Carmela. Seeing the enemy approaching, Carmela did not show any fear and roared towards her. The two huge objects collided heavily, causing the soil and gravel on the ground to fly. After separating under the reaction force, Pingguang quickly reached out his claws and grabbed the opponent's head, then directly threw it over the shoulder. Although the posture is not standard, all you need to do is throw the enemy down. Carmela was momentarily thrown and disoriented, and before she could wait, she was covered in a shadow. Boom! The earth trembled, and at the same time, a mournful cry of a monster sounded. In the USS Nasties, Shin Nakajima unconsciously touched his chest, recalling his experience on Mars. That dark female giant was also hit by this move and ran away. He speculated afterwards that the injury was quite serious, which is why he ran away.